Hello. So after a very long time, we're back. Today we're gonna be doing a dual review of both WandaVision and The Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm finally home, and we're my sister and I are together again. So we're
School's out, yay!
So now I graduated. I have to find a job. now,
You graduated. Now what?
yeah. So now we're finally able to be back and do reviews, so hopefully we'll be able to get more frequent videos
once movies actually are a thing again.
yeah, and hopefully these videos won't be over a year apart again. I'm hoping we can get reviews of Cruella when that comes out.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see that. Who asked for that?
And then I don't know, whatever else comes out, and Black Widow, obviously, and Loki and everything in the future. But yeah,
Black Widow, which was supposed to come out a year ago.
but yeah, so let's start with WandaVision. So it's the MCU's TV debut, and it kind of shows in the writing that they're still getting used to having writing for a series instead of a 2-hour long movie. Just the way that the pacing and the way that the episodes were spaced out, it felt to me overall they'd reveal too little and then too much at one point. The first 3 episodes are just a sitcom, and each as episode goes through a different decade. So the first episode is supposed to be in the 50s with the takeoff of the Dick Van Dyke Show, and then next episode is in the 60s and then the 70s, and then so on and so forth. So it's set up to be a mystery, Wanda and Vision are in this sitcom type thing, and you don't really know what's going on or how they got there, and then the episodes will mostly run as this normal funny sitcom, and then occasionally something weird will happen, and you don't really know what's going on, and then it isn't until the 4th episode that they start to show out the outside world and what's actually going on. This will be non-spoilers for the first section. Then we'll go into spoilers later, by the way. So yeah, I thought that they could have I don't know, I thought they could have gone into a little more of what was given us some more answers earlier, I guess. I don't know if that's just me, but I felt I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of the way that they just had us in this mystery for 3 episodes, and then all of a sudden at the 4th episode they just bombard you with this whole other thing that's going on, and I don't know, it felt very weird to me. I don't know.
It could have been more evenly split up, I
yeah.
guess.
And especially towards the end, the way everything resolved, it felt very rushed. And I think I attribute to that, I don't think that the writers are super used to knowing how to write these kinds of stories in a series format instead of just a movie.
Yeah, either it was that they needed more episodes, or they should have revealed more things early on. I mean, I kind of liked how early on you didn't get a whole lot of information because it was kind of building up, but then the payoff was very rushed, and I think it wasn't long enough to have a satisfying payoff for all of the build up that we had initially. But yeah, I really liked the first couple of episodes. When I first heard they were making WandaVision, I wasn't sure what to think, because I have not really cared that much about Wanda or Vision in the MCU. I mean, I always felt their romance was kind of weird, because, he's a robot.
Yeah, and I mean, just, we didn't get a lot of, screen time with them, so, their relationship kind of, just seemed to, come out of nowhere, and,
I mean, obviously, we know what happens in the comics, but,
in terms of, just, the movies, they aren't given a lot of screen time. I mean, some of the scenes that they have together in Civil War are nice, but it's not enough to warrant, I think, a real, connection or investment in their relationship. So I wasn't super excited for this show, but I mean the premise definitely sounded interesting. So I haven't read like the House of M comics or anything like that, so I didn't really know what to expect going in to the show. But I mean overall, I think that like aside from like obviously like my issues with like the pacing and the writing, I think that like they do a good job of like writing the characters and keeping them interesting. I mean, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany definitely do a fantastic job, respectively, as their characters. And we're also introduced to some new characters. Agnes, who we'll get into later, she's a lot of fun. She's like this like nosy neighbor who's like always like barging into the house unannounced, because I guess that was like a thing in like old sitcoms where people would just do that.
Melissa, we have someone knocking. No, I'm kidding, we don't. Someone's at our door.
Yeah, so she's a lot of fun. And I don't know how much to talk about the other characters, I don't know, like, what people would consider spoilers. I mean, I guess, like, people knew going in that, like, Darcy and Agent Wu would be characters, because I think that they, like, announced that at, like, the Comic-Con. But I don't want to get too much into, like, their involvement, because that does get into some, like, spoilery stuff. But yeah, they're in this. I'll say about, I feel like I'm probably in the minority in this, but I've never really been a huge fan of Darcy, if I'm being completely honest. I
thought she was kind of annoying.
Yeah, like, I never thought she was funny. Like, she just, like, seemed kind of there to try to, like, just get some cheap laughs out of the audience, especially in Dark World. I felt like they gave her way too much screen time.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know why you need to have this character for comic relief, because Loki's already comic relief, but he's way funnier.
He's much funnier. And, like, I know, like, some people, like, ship him and Darcy. I'm like, no, I don't. But that's just me. I know there are a lot of people who do like her. But yeah, like, again, in this show, like, I didn't really find her. I mean, I felt like her jokes were a little better than in the Thor movies, but I still...
she had, like, more to do in this show.
Yeah, she has more, like, actually, she has, like, an actual, like, relevance to the plot. And...
the first two Thor movies didn't do that.
Yeah. But, again, like, I just don't think she's that funny. I like James Wu a lot better. I mean, he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Mr. FBI man.
Yeah.
He watches your computer.
I mean, I had kind of the same issue there where he just felt like a cheap comic relief, but, like, he was actually funny, though. Like, I genuinely, like, enjoyed watching him, and he's funny in this show, too. So I hope we get to see more of him in the future. But yeah, so... I don't really know what else to talk about without going to spoilers. The cinematography is cool. I like that they, like, styled the shots like the style of, like, the show that they're, like, because, like, each episode is, it's set in a different decade, but it's also, like, emulating a certain show. Like, the 50s was the Dick Van Dyke Show, and then, the 60s is, like, Bewitched, and then I think in, like, the 70s they're trying to do, like, a spin-off of the Brady Bunch or whatever, and so, like, they'll, like, mimic, like, the camera angles, and then, like, when something weird happens, they'll, like, change the aspect ratio to, like, what they normally do, and it gets, like, it just makes it very, like, unnerving and creepy, and I like that was really cool. Mm-hmm. The costume design is pretty cool, too. Like, they go, like, through, like, the different decades, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth watching. I think that, like, I get that, like, this is the MCU's debut in series, they probably just need time to, like, kind of warm up to actually, like, figuring out how to write this show, how to write the stories in, like, a series format. I liked it a little more than the Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I'll get to that. But I mean, I guess in terms of, like, I don't know, like, a grade, like, I guess I'd give it, like, a B or a B+.
I'd say that my feelings around it kind of changed. Like, I really liked the first couple of episodes. I thought it was really, like, because they were doing something that was literally, like, new and creative that you'd never seen before in the MCU. And I was, like, oh, I really like how they're, like, copying the styles of all these different shows and, like, really faithfully recreating them. And then towards the end, when it kind of just dissolved into more, like, standard MCU, they kind of went back to doing, like, the typical MCU thing. they kind of dropped that whole shtick, it kind of, like, became less interesting, to me. So I'd say that, like, the first half of the show I liked, and then later on it kind of got worse as it went along.
Yeah. I mean, the finale was kind of cool. I have issues with it, but, like, again, like, I don't want to talk about too much without, like, going to spoilers. So I think that, like, how we'll do this is, like, we'll do Falcon Winter Soldier non-spoilers, and then we'll go back and do spoilery stuff. So
are we gonna go Falcon Winter Soldier now?
Yeah, because I don't think that we can talk about much else without going to spoilers. Okay. But yeah, so overall, my grade for the show would be, like, a B or B+. The writing's not... like I said, like, the writing still needs work, but overall, like, it's a pretty interesting show, and I think that it's still definitely worth a watch. So yeah, so next we have the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and this might just be, but I feel like they were, like, ordering the release date of these shows in terms of, like, hype, because, like, I feel like not a whole lot of people were super excited for WandaVision because they, like, weren't, like, anybody's, like, favorite character or anything, and then more people like Bucky and Sam, so, and then obviously, like, everybody is, like, excited for Loki, so I don't, that's just been my theory.
Was Falcon Winter Soldier originally, because I know that they had to move the release dates because of COVID, obviously. I thought I read somewhere that Falcon Winter Soldier was originally supposed to come out first. Like, I know it was supposed to come out in August. I don't remember what dates they were originally supposed to come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that might have affected things because they got moved.
But at least, like, the way that they came out now, it definitely seemed like they were ordering in, like, terms of, like, hype. Because, like, I don't know about Loki, but, like, you could really have released these shows in, like, any order and it wouldn't really. Because, like, the WandaVision doesn't really connect to Falcon and Winter Soldier in any way. So, like, that's just something I kind of noticed. But yeah, so... Falcon and Winter Soldier takes place, obviously, after Endgame, when Steve gives Sam the shield, after Steve leaves his one true love, Bucky. How could you? I'm so salty about that. And so Sam kind of has to just deal with, like, figuring out, how to handle the responsibility of being Captain America, or does he even want to have that responsibility? And then obviously, like, race plays a factor in that, because of just the US's, like, terrible institutional racism, and they go into some very heavy stuff in that, which I was really impressed with, because I didn't think that, like, especially for, like, a comic book show, that they would go into, like, stuff like that. But, like, I thought that, like, the way that they handled, like, dealing with the issues of, like, racism, I thought, like, that was really well done. Like, it didn't feel, like, preachy or anything. It felt, like, very, like, real, and, like, you could tell, like, the writers, like, definitely, like, knew what they were talking about.
I think one of the writers, Malcolm, I don't remember what his name is, he worked on Empire, but I've never seen that show, so I can't speak to... I mean, I've heard good things about it, but I've never watched it. But yeah, I didn't think the writing in this show was that great, unfortunately. It felt like a rough draft. It didn't feel like a finished product. I read some things when the show was still being developed that behind the scenes was, like, a disaster, and there were a lot of problems, and it definitely kind of shows in the finished result. Like, I think they needed more time to develop the script for some of this stuff. But yeah, basically it shows, it deals with Falcon, and then also shows Bucky, kind of dealing with, the guilt he feels and with the repercussions of what he did as the Winter Soldier. And it starts off kind of showing him trying to adjust to normal life without his boyfriend. Without Steve. And then there's, like, this terrorist group called the Flag Smashers, and then they get called, I don't know, can we talk about the setup for spoilers? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I think that the basic premise of the show is fine.
Well, yeah, the basic premise, I guess, is that, in the first episode, Sam gives up the shield. He decides to donate it to the Smithsonian, and then, like, immediately after, they give the shield, of course, to John Walker.
Bitch boy.
Yeah, we'll get into him. So then they try to fight the Flag Smashers, and John Walker and his partner wants to, like, team up with them, but they're like, you're not our real dad, we want nothing to do with you. And then it kind of goes from there. I guess I'll talk about some stuff in the first episode. One thing that I really, like, this really bothered me was Bucky's therapist. Because they show him in therapy, people are, like, joking about how much Bucky needs a therapist, so they finally give him one, but his therapist is, like, really awful, and for some reason, she's depicted as being, like, oh, this is, like, a good therapist. It's like, no. That's, like, I've been into therapy, that's not what, like, no therapist should ever talk like that to one of their patients.
Yeah, like, they're depicting her as, like, oh, this is, like, tough love or whatever, but, like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah, there's a point where he's like, you know, I just want to have peace, which I think is, like, a totally reasonable thing for someone like Bucky who's been through what he's been through to say, and she's like, oh, that is such bullshit. It's like, why is that bullshit? What are you talking about?
I was like, yeah, okay, so if he doesn't want peace, what do you think he wants?
Yeah.
Like, they don't, like, they, like, she just, like, says that, and it's like, okay, like, or what are you trying to say then?
Yeah, she, like, and, like, Bucky, like, very clearly doesn't trust her or doesn't feel comfortable, so I'm like, but then, I don't know if this is spoilers, I guess, but, like, she's depicted as being like, oh, yeah, that this is, like, good therapy, and it's like, if this is supposed to be what a good therapist is, then why does Bucky not trust her? And he doesn't, and then she, like, forces him to give her his phone, which is, like, again, that's a privacy violation. Therapists shouldn't do that. I was reading a thread by an actual therapist who was like, yeah, no therapist would ever do this, like, this is horrible. So, like, you know, I didn't think that was a very good depiction of, and I get that it's, like, a show, it doesn't have to be realistic, but, like, again, it's kind of, like, a bad thing, because, like, if people see this and they think that's what therapy is, they might not want to go to therapy, so it's like, maybe you should be a little more careful about how you depict, like, I know that not every therapist is great, but, like, the fact that they show her and then, I mean, like, Joker had a scene where the therapist wasn't that great, but, like, it was mostly just her kind of being, like, not helpful. They didn't show her, like, literally snapping at him and being, like, a complete bitch. So, yeah, I didn't like that. There are a lot of aspects of the show, but I don't know how much I can talk about without getting into spoilers. I guess, like, I don't know, we can talk about the character of Elijah Bradley. He, I felt like that needed a bit more time. Like, I thought it was really interesting, kind of like what his character had been through. Basically, is this spoilers, like, to talk about what they reveal about him?
It might be, yeah. Also, are you talking about Elijah or Isaiah? Because Elijah's his grandson.
Oh, wait, I get them mixed up.
Yeah.
It was Isaiah? Oh,
Isaiah, yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, if you've read comics, you might know who those characters are. It might be spoilers to get into that, though, so I'll just say, overall, I think it was trying to delve into these very, like, difficult topics, and I think the problem with the show, like, it's very, like, confused in its messaging, like, it's trying to say a lot of things, but it's not very clear, and I'll get into specifics as to, like, why I think that is later, but it's trying to, like, say all these things, but it kind of has these, like, conflicting messages in it, where it feels like they're trying to, like, please everybody almost, and it's like, okay, you kind of have to, like, pick a side here as to, like, what you're trying to say. But yeah, I mean, I give them credit for at least delving into these topics and trying, because I think most comic book shows wouldn't. But yeah, overall, I just thought that the script was not... Also, another thing is that everyone wanted to see, because obviously Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie are, like, really funny together in interviews, and they were really funny in Civil War. So everyone was, like, wanting to see them together in the show, but one thing I had is that I didn't actually find their scenes together that funny. I mean, there were some lines there, but, like, their banter was not that funny to me, like, and I think part of the reason was that Marvel just thought, like, oh, Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie, they're funny together in interviews, so if we just put them on screen together and they'll just be funny, and it's like, okay, but you still have to write good jokes for them, like, I don't know if those jokes were, like, ad-libbed, or if those were...
I doubt it. Like, I feel like if they just let them improvise, it would have been a lot funnier.
Yeah, probably. So I think the jokes they wrote for them were like not that funny, and they're like, well, they'll make it funny, and it's like, no, you still have to have good writing. Like, you can't just have two funny actors, or actors have a lot of great like comedic like chemistry together, and then think that like if you just don't write a good script for them, that they'll just make it funny anyways. Like, and I think a big part of that is that the reason why they were funny together in Civil War is because their jokes were really quick. Like, it was just, like, and it didn't, like, distract from the scene. Like, there'd be, like, an action scene or a scene where something else was going on, and they just have this, like, quick gag where Bucky or Sam would say something, and then the other would have, like, a snappy retort, and then that'd be it. Whereas in this show, their bantering scenes go on for way too long, and it's just not that funny. It's like, if you just cut this short and made this, like, a quick joke, it would have been funnier, but they drag it out for way too long, like, Bucky and Sam are just arguing. It's like, oh my god, we get it. Can you please move on? It's like, The Hobbit, I read that book in the 30s when it came out, or Steve loved Marvin Gaye. They, like, have these banter, these jokes that just go on for forever. It's like, guys, can you just stop? Like, this isn't funny.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think one of my biggest issues with this show is that it just highlighted what a terrible decision it was for Steve to leave Bucky. Like, I'm just watching Bucky, like, this is so, like, he has nobody. And Steve left him for what? So he could be with his girlfriend who already had a family and shit? I'm like, this is terrible.
I don't envy the show writers for having to kind of, obviously the writers of the show didn't write that ending, so I don't blame them for that, but I feel sorry for them for having to, like, kind of work around that, like, how awkward that is, that, like, and you can kind of tell because in the show, they talk about Steve sometimes, but a lot of the show was actually them talking about the Shield and what the Shield means to them, not Steve. And, like, they do talk about him sometimes, but it's, like, Justin's very, like, quick mentions, and they don't really even, like, specifically say what happened to Steve.
Yeah, like, they just say, like, he's gone. It's like, well, what does that mean? Is he dead? Is he just,
I don't know if they're, like, leaving the door open for in case Chris Evans wants to come back. I know that earlier there were rumors that he was coming back, but then he said he wasn't. But I don't know, because, I mean, Marvel actors do sometimes lie to keep things secret, so, like, it could be that he is coming back and he was just saying he wasn't, or Kevin Feige actually himself said. So people are kind of like, oh, okay, I guess he's not coming back. But the thing is that the news came from Deadline Hollywood, which is known to be pretty reputable. So they're probably like, well, if Deadline Hollywood's saying it, they must be true. So, and then people are like, oh, he's lying. So I don't know what's going on, if he's coming back or not. I hope he does, and they can at least, like, do something to him. I didn't like the way his character ended at all.
Make Stucky canon, that's all I want. Also, I know that, like, a ton of people are, like, shipping Sam and Bucky now because of the show, but sorry, I'm Stucky for life.
Yeah, they just don't have as much chemistry in the show. I mean, Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie are really funny together, but it doesn't show in this show. Their scenes together just felt very, like, forced, and, like, their bantering didn't fit the tone of what was going on. Like, you'd have this very, like, serious scene, and Anthony Mackie, or Sam Wilson, for no reason, is suddenly, like, arguing and bantering with Bucky, and it's like, this does not fit the tone of what's happening in this scene right now.
Yeah, so I guess, before we get into spoiler stuff, like,
oh, we have to talk about Zemo.
Oh, Zemo, yeah, so Zemo's in this show, so I don't think this would be, like, super spoilery. They break him out of prison, because, like, they need his help to stop these super soldiers, and, then obviously, like, that leads to the dancing scene, that's become, like, a huge meme now.
Also, Sharon's in the show. I don't know why, but she is.
Yeah, and, like, again, like, her, like, being there is also super awkward, because it's, like,
they don't mention
you're like, well, you kissed Steve, but isn't he, like, technically your uncle now? Like, what the fuck?
Sweet home man.
So yeah, like, that's her character is just weird in this. Yeah, but I mean, like, at least, like, Zemo was, like, funny. I mean, like, he's not, like, one of my favorite villains or anything, but, like,
stop trying to make Sharon Carter happen, please. She's not an interesting character.
Yeah, but I mean, like, Zemo was never, like, one of my favorite MCU villains, but, like, he was cool, and, like, he's definitely, like, he has a lot more, like, charisma in this, and, I mean, I am hoping that they do bring him back for something at some point, because, I don't know, he's still pretty cool, and, you know, like his dancing, so, yeah, so, yeah, I guess I don't really know what else to talk about without getting into spoilers, so, like, overall, I guess I'd give Falcon Winter Soldier a B-. I didn't like it as much as, WandaVision for a lot of the, things we talked about. The writing definitely needed work. I feel like when they did get into, like, the race stuff, specifically with, like, Isaiah Bradley's, like, backstory and what happened to him, I felt like that, for the most part, was handled pretty well, but, like, again, like, the script, it definitely needed work. This felt, like, very rushed. Like, they just knew, like, people wanted this show to come out, so they just got it done as soon as possible and said, like, well, here you go, here's the show, but, like, no, it needed work. So yeah, I guess we can get into spoilery stuff now. So yeah, WandaVision. It was Agatha all along! I saw this I think I sent this to you, the parody of it. It was Palpatine all along. It was great. But yeah, so towards the end, we find out that the nosy neighbor character, Agnes, is actually Agatha Harkness, which a lot of people guessed, because, you know, Agnes, Agatha, pretty similar. But yeah, so, like, we find out, like, basically what happened is that, like, Wanda, like, wanted to, I guess, like, bury, Vision, but this organization that, what's her name from, Captain Marvel, was Monica, or was that her mom? I don't know. Maria, Monica was the daughter, right?
Yeah, Monica.
Yeah,
was the
Maria
daughter.
Rambo founded called SWORD, which is like Sword and Shield. And so this asshole director from SWORD said, like, no, you can't bury him because he's like vibranium. He's like super like expensive and worth a lot of money.
We can rebuild him, make him stronger.
So yeah, she finds that they're basically, like, taking him apart, and then, like, we find out that, like, Vision was gonna, like, they were gonna have a house together and all that, like, stuff, and then, like, Wanda, like, basically just, like...
That actually didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because, like, weren't Wanda and Vision, like, on the run for 2 years? Like, when did he have time to buy a house?
I don't know. But yeah, so then, like... she basically, like, can't control, like, her grief, so her magic creates this, like, hex in the town where they were gonna live, where she basically, like, traps everybody there, and then, like, creates her own little sitcom world, which is, like, what we were seeing in the first 3 episodes, and then, like, all of the people in the town are, like, stuck under her influence, and they're playing, like, characters, and she's, like, controlling all of them, and then, so that's when, like, SWORD comes in, and then Darcy, who is, like, a scientist now, although I thought they said that she was studying, like, political science, and...
Yeah, she changed her major.
Yeah. And then Agent Wu comes in, and then, Monica, Maria's daughter, and then we find out, like, Maria died, in, like, the 5 years that, Monica was missing, from the snap. And, yeah, so it's basically, like, them trying to get Wanda to stop, and I guess, like, Agatha wanted to know how she did that, because she's really powerful, and I guess, like, she wants her power. So she starts, like, messing up everything, and she creates, Pietro, who's not really Pietro, which, God, that was a letdown.
Oh my god, yeah, I hated that. Like, they brought in, the actor who plays Quicksilver in the X-Men to, I guess, you think he's gonna be, like, the new Quicksilver in the MCU, like, he's gonna replace, the Quicksilver who was from Age of Ultron, which I always thought that the X-Men, the Fox X-Men Quicksilver was better than the Quicksilver from Age of Ultron. I mean, that scene alone from Days of Future Past, the kitchen scene, like, that's, like, one of the coolest comic book scenes ever. Whereas the other Quicksilver, he just got shot and then died. Like, that's the lamest, like, especially, how do you kill off Quicksilver with bullets? His whole superpower is, like, he can run fast and, like, dodge things. And you just shoot him, like, it was, I hate Joss Whedon. But yeah, like, so I thought that the X-Men Quicksilver was better, so I was glad that, I think his name's Evan Peters,
Yeah.
was coming, but then you find out that actually, no, he's not Quicksilver, he's just some dude, and they just, like, for some reason brought that actor in because people would recognize him, but you find out he's not actually gonna be Quicksilver, so I was like, what was the point of that then? It was so they can make a Boner joke, because his last name, you find out his real name is Ralph Boner. Or something.
Yeah. And, like, that was so, like, I remember when, like, I watched, like, that episode and, like, you see, like, Evan Peters for the first time and everybody got, like, so excited, like, oh my god, does this mean that, like...
He's in the MCU
are they, like, making a multiverse? Is, like,
are they bringing the X-Men
Are the X-Men, like, part of, like, the MCU now? Because Disney can do that, because they own Fox now.
Because Disney owns everything.
Yeah. And, like, everybody got, like, so excited. And apparently even the actors thought that was what was going on. Like, I guess, like, Elizabeth Olsen said that she thought that, like, that was what that meant. That, like, they were merging, like, the two universe.
What a letdown.
I know. It was, like, then they're like, haha, no, actually, he's not, really Pedro. He's just some guy named Ralph Boner.
Like, what?
Bye. Like, that was so, like, I hated that. Like, that was so stupid.
You gave me hope, and then you just destroyed it.
For a fucking boner joke.
This is why, like, sometimes I hate when the MCU does humor like this. It's like, oh, I made a funny joke, but at what cost? At the expense of my hopes and dreams.
Yeah, so, and... I don't know, like, I felt like Agatha's, like, motivation was just kind of, like, confusing to me. Like, I don't know, she
wants her power, I guess.
Yeah, like, so what, you just, like, sensed that she made this town or something? And then they, like, go into Wanda's backstory, which gets even more confusing, because I guess they, like, say something like, oh, actually, like, Wanda was a witch even before she absorbed, like, the Mind Stone's power. I guess that's, like, she was the reason that the bomb that, like, hit her and Pedro's house didn't go off. They said, like, she made, like, some, like, probability spell or something. Like, what? How does that... I
thought she had her powers because Hydra experimented on her, but...
Yeah, but then I guess, like, now they're saying the stone just, like, enhanced her powers or whatever.
Did Quicksilver
that was really confusing to me. I didn't get that. But yeah, I mean... It was nice to see, like, some more scenes between Wanda and Vision. Like, the scene where, Wanda's, like, watching TV, and, like, Vision, like, consoles her after she, like, loses her brother. Like, that was nice. I like that. And I'm glad that we get, Wicked and Speed, her kids. That's cool. And, like, obviously, like, they're, like, hinting that, like, they're gonna come back. And I guess, like, it seems like they're trying to build up the Young Avengers, because, like, we're getting, like, Elijah Bradley, the twins, Kate Bishop, so it seems like that they're building towards, like, a Young Avengers type thing, which would be pretty cool. And, yeah, so, I mean, the final episode, again, I thought that, like, it was rushed, particularly because, like, Wanda doesn't really, like, face any consequences for, like, literally kidnapping a town.
Yeah, like, they
it's
don't,
like, oh, yeah, sorry, what I did was wrong, but, you know, I was sad, so that makes it okay, like, not really.
Yeah, well, it annoyed me that, like, Monica, she's like, well, you know, my mom, I'd bring my mom back, too. It's like, okay, but there's a difference between wanting to bring back a dead loved one and enslaving an entire town full of people, like, you understand the difference between those two things, right?
It's like, yeah, because, like, I guess, like, I get that, like, in order to, like, keep her, like, family alive in this illusion, she has to, like, enslave this town, because, like, when she finally does let the people go and, like, erases the hex, like, the vision that, like, she created disappear, and her kids disappear.
Can you just shrink it down to be, like, a house? Like, did you have to make an entire town? I don't know, but it was, like, and yeah, like, and they kind of brush off, like, the consequences of how bad it was, like, she even says, like, oh, this town, like, they'll never know what you sacrificed for them. It's like, you had no right to do that in the first. It's like in Wonder Woman 84 when she brings back Steve by like taking over this dude's body, and then when she lets him go, it's like, oh, what a sacrifice. Like, okay, but you were enslaving another person essentially. Like, you didn't really have the right to do that anyways. So that's not really like a sacrifice, that's just you doing something that you should have done. And they don't, it's not really made clear like how much Wanda is like aware of what's going on initially. Like, it's portrayed as like in the beginning she's like confused and like doesn't know where she is or doesn't know what's happening. So you could be like, well, maybe when she initially created the Hex, she wasn't doing it intentionally and she didn't know what was happening. But then it's kind of very obvious that, like, towards the end, like, she does know that she's enslaving people, basically, and then she still, like, refuses to release the Hex. So that kind of makes her, it's like, okay, that's kind of messed up. Like, I get that you're sad that you have this family now, but it's like, but you're enslaving an entire town of people. Like, it's kind of hard for me to feel sympathy for you then.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure what else to talk about. I mean, when she finally does become the Scarlet Witch, because, like, Disney has the rights to use that name now. I mean, her costume's cool. I mean, I thought, like, the ending was very rushed, but I mean, like, I guess it's cool. We're getting, like, the real character now, and, she's gonna be in Multiverse of Madness. I'm at least, like, looking forward to what they do with that. But yeah, like, the kind of, like, sending, like, mixed, like, messages about morality here, guys.
Yeah. Also, there was another this is, like, a nitpicky thing, but it kind of annoyed me how, when they show, like, she got the inspiration to create all these, sitcom worlds by, these were, like, shows that she used to watch with her family when she was, and they show, like, her and her family watching them, but the thing is, like, I'm assuming that because she was born in 1989, I think, so, like...
Well, the actress. I don't know, like, how old the character is supposed to be.
I think they say that her character, she was also born in 1989, that's when they say was her birthday, so, like, that scene is clearly supposed to take place in either, like, the 90s or early 2000s, and yet they have these, like, high-quality DVDs, and it's, like... Okay, people were mostly using, like, VHS tapes
well,
still.
We still had VHS.
And even when we were, like, we grew up in the 2000s, and even we used VHS tapes for a long time, because most people couldn't afford, like, DVDs, because they were still really expensive. So, I mean, they're, like, this family in Russia or wherever, and they're clearly, like, not wealthy, but for some reason they have, like, all these DVDs that are, like, in really good quality. It's, like... I don't know, that was, like, a nitpicky thing.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
I was like, yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
So yeah, I mean, guess that's pretty much, like, all I really have to say. I mean, it was a cool premise, definitely, kind of a disappointing payoff. I don't know if they're planning to make another season of this or not.
Obviously, we're gonna get the Doctor Strange movie where she's gonna be in that.
And, like, obviously, like, it definitely seems like from, like, the post-credit scene where, like, you hear, like, she's, like, reading from, like, this magic book or whatever, and, like, you hear her kids, so, like, they're obviously, like, implying that she's somehow gonna be able to bring the kids back, and obviously, like, they were able to, like, reconstruct Vision into, like, this white Vision or whatever, and he goes off somewhere and we don't know where he is.
They whitewashed Vision.
So, yeah, so... I guess, I am at least, like, looking forward to seeing, like, where they go with this, but, again, like, I hope that, like, when they get, like, more comfortable with writing series, that, like, the quality of the writing will be better.
I'm still angry over that, Ralph.
I know.
That was, like, the biggest letdown ever.
Yeah, so, guess we can go on to Falcon and Winter Soldier now. So, yeah, so, basically, like... We find out we go into, like, Isaiah Bradley's backstory that, like, he basically had, like, the same stories Steve, like, he, like, got, like, experimented on, and although I guess, like, they didn't, like, tell him that they were actually giving him, like, the serum, they experimented on, like, him and this other group of, other soldiers who I'm assuming were also all black. and like they didn't. I think that they didn't like tell them like what they were actually giving them, and then I guess like he did like the same thing as Steve, where he like defied orders to go save his soldiers, but like whereas like Steve was celebrated as a hero, Asai got like locked up in jail, and like they like continued to experiment on him for like 30 years, and so it gets into like very like heavy stuff with like institutional racism, and like I feel like overall like that was handled really well. Like you definitely like you feel angry at like the injustice that like Asai brought, especially because like they make so many parallels to like him and Steve and what happened to Steve, but like obviously like Steve was like celebrated as a hero, whereas like with Asai like the government basically just like hid his like existence and like treated him like a criminal, and like that I felt like that was handled really well, and I'm excited. I was disappointed we didn't get to see more of Elijah though, because like I know that like he becomes Patriot. I was hoping that we would get to like maybe like be introduced to like him in action, but I don't know, I guess we'll get that like later at some point. But yeah, so then we also get introduced to John Walker, who everybody hates, and I this is one of the like the highlights of the show's writing, I feel like, because like I think that like it's a good thing that a lot of people do like hate him, because like he's such a good villain that like you just like he's like one of those villains that like you love to hate. Like obviously like the best villains are ones that you either like love or you love to hate, and like everybody's just so passionate about how much they hate this character, and I feel like that was definitely a sign of a good writing, at least on that point.
But then like this is one of the areas where I felt like it got confused for me, because then like yeah, obviously they're setting up, they set this character up initially almost as if like they're trying to make him somewhat sympathetic. Like they show him being like nervous to take on the shield to kind of humanize him, and they show him with his friends and his girlfriend, and then you show Sam and Bucky just like wanting nothing to do with him, obviously because he, you know, was given the shield, even though that was supposed to be Sam's shield. So then they start making him like really hateable. Like he does a lot of stupid things, like he steals the serum when he like takes the serum without anyone knowing. He obviously obviously like the highlight of the show is like him killing, where he like kills that dude, and you see like the blood dripping off Captain America's I remember this one person was like tweeting to Chris Evans like, you would never Steve would never I mean it's not like Steve didn't kill people, obviously, but the thing was that like, you know, he killed the wrong person, because it was that girl that killed his friend, not that guy, but he still just killed him anyway, even though he was like begging for his life, which was like, you know, a messed up thing to watch. So then they do, and then also he lies to Lamar's family after he dies. Says like, oh yeah, I killed the guy who killed Lamar, even though he wasn't the guy who killed Lamar, and like he knows that he didn't kill Lamar, but he still lies to them, so they're like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
But then towards the end, they try to redeem him, almost make him like likable.
Yeah, like
it's
that.
Like, I know.
Like you. Again, like, I'm sorry, you can't. Like, I don't give a shit what this guy. Like, you can't make me like this character.
Oh, he quoted Lincoln. He's like, it's like. Also, that was another thing with like, especially considering what's going on in America right now. It was, you know, the whole George Floyd thing. It's like, you guys show this dude killing a guy in cold blood in front of a bunch of cameras, and now you're trying to make him likable. Like, really bad timing there, guys.
And like, I don't know, it's not even like just the fact that he did all this horrible stuff. Like, his like whole like personality, like he just exudes so much like entitled white boy energy to me. Like, and like every like scene he'll be like, I'm Captain America, and like he'll always introduce himself as Captain America, and like be like,
but
very,
like Steve always introduced himself as Steve.
Yeah, Steve. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. He was so humble. Oh, Steve, I missed you. Whereas like this asshole is just like I remember like there's this one scene where like he like goes up to one of the guys, and like I think he was working in like the terrorist camp or whatever. He's like, do you know who I am? He's like, I don't give a fuck who you are.
Yeah, and then like, yeah, so they do all that, and then suddenly towards the end, it's like they're trying to like redeem it. It just is like, again, this is one thing where like, okay, pick if you want to make this guy sympathetic, then make him sympathetic. If you want to make him hateable, make him hateable. You can't do both at the same time. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, like, with the, I think that, like, with the way that, like, people, like, very much negatively respond to this character, it's like, okay, like, guys, like, you can't make us like this character now. Like, don't try, like...
Another thing that they, and another example of, like, confused messaging is, you think, like, okay, he's supposed to represent, like, you know, entitled white people, white supremacy, but then he also has, like, Lamar, who's his friend who dies, and... that he even says something like, oh, so Lamar's life didn't matter, which was obviously supposed to be, like, a reference to Black Lives Matter, so then I was like, what are you trying to say with this character exactly? Like, is he, like, a representation of white supremacy, but then he, like, you know, wants to redeem his black best friend who was killed, so it's, like, really weird the way that they, like, they're not, again, it's like, what are you trying to say with this character? Like, what is this character supposed to represent? I don't get it, like... And another thing that I really didn't like about the show was the fact that Sam is the one that voluntarily gives up the shield, because that just felt like a kind of a cop-out for me, like, if you really want to go with this thing, like, hey, Sam was supposed to be Captain America, but the shield was, like, unjustly taken from him and given to a white guy, then have the government force him, or, like, have the government come in and, like, force him to give up the shield or something, or confiscate the shield from him, on the grounds that it's, like, government property, even though you find out it's not actually government property, or do something like that, and then it would feel like there was, like, more of a justification for him to feel like, yeah, I was supposed to be Captain America, and the shield was taken from me, but when, like, he's the one that voluntarily gives it up, so then it's, like, okay, well, but, like, you were the one that gave up the shield, so it feels less like him fighting for something that was taken away from him, and more like him just wanting back something that he gave away. So I didn't like the fact that they just... And also, it contradicts the ending of Endgame, because the Endgame, when Steve gives him the shield, he's like, thank you, I'll do my best, and then, like, a month later, he just gives it up, like, okay. And then, so yeah, I didn't like that. And other things that, again, it just highlights how poor of a decision it was for Steve to just leave. Like, they keep saying, like, oh, well, this isn't what Steve wanted. It's like, well, if maybe Steve should have stuck around to make sure it didn't happen then, like, he's like, well, you know, Steve wanted me to have the shield, like, well, then he should have been there to make sure that you were given the shield. Yeah, like, again, like, this, like, goes, like, back to, like, what I was saying earlier, like, honestly, like, I don't know if I did say this earlier in this review, but, like, I honestly felt like if they wanted, like, Steve's story to end an Endgame, they should have just killed him off, because that would have made a lot of what was happening here, like, just a lot, it would make a lot more sense that, like, all this bad stuff was happening, and Steve can't stop it, not because he voluntarily made the decision to leave, but because he's dead, and there's nothing that he can do about it now. It would feel more if it was like, yeah, Steve would do something about this if he could, but he can't because he's dead now. But not like, oh, Steve voluntarily chose to not be here to help us, so then it feels like that was kind of a dick move. There was also some controversy about some of the, like, political messaging, and some of it is, like, not great, or the way they handle it, because, one thing's that this group called, like, the Flag Smashers, their motivation is really weird to me, because on one hand, they say that, like, we think the world was better during the snap, so basically, like, they want things to go back to when half the people were dead. So it's like, I mean, okay, but I don't know how you think you can achieve that without just, like, killing half the people again, because, like, if you have billions more people, obviously things are gonna be different. So that's one motivation that they give. But then they also say they want a world without borders, and I'm like, are those two things really, like, connected in any way? Like, those don't... What does wanting open borders have to do with... I mean, I thought that, like... This might just be my term, but I thought that, like... I guess they thought, like, the snap, like, united the world in a sense of, like, the whole, like, world. Like, every country lost people in their population, so it was, like, a united, like, cause for the entire world. So I guess that they felt like the world kind of came
together in that sense. I don't know. Like, I thought maybe they were going for something like that.
The thing that was bad about that is that there is actually an actual political movement for open borders or people who want. And again, regardless of whether or not you agree with that, they were like unhappy. Like, why are you depicting people who want open borders like crazy people who just blow stuff up? Like, that's not the point of that. That's not what that movement is about. And that is like an actual legitimate leftist movement. So it was like, you probably should have just not gotten into that or just not touched that topic. And it didn't really even have anything to do with the story, other than like in the beginning. Of course, they show him you know, like doing like some sort of like a military operation, and he's like about to fly into Libya, and the guy's like, can't, because Libya's borders, you can't cross into Libya's borders, and people are like, yeah, because if there's one thing that the United States military is incredibly well known for, it's respecting Libyan sovereignty. I was finding that Tall in the Shadows review. I oppose unauthorized military action in Libya.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, and then they do that like thing, or that they always do in movies, where they show Tunisia in like this gross filter. It was like, oh, it's a foreign Middle Eastern place, so we have to slap a yellow filter over
They do
it.
the same with like Mexico. Whenever they film a scene with that, they slap this like gross like brown filter over it.
It's like, and also if you actually look at pictures of Tunisia, it actually almost looks like Greece. Like, it's by the ocean and it's very beautiful. So I'm like, why did you make Tunisia look ugly? Like, that's, I don't know. I hated that. But yeah, so then this like group, and then another example of confused messaging is the Flag Smashers. They're trying to portray this girl, Carly, who's the leader, as sympathetic, because it's like, you know, she's suffered a lot, and it's like, oh, they're trying to give, like, food and medicine, and then they want the world to be united. Like, they say, like, oh, we're one world, one people. I mean, that sounds like something the Dalai Lama would say. I don't know, like, that's, you know. But then she, like, blows up buildings and does all this evil stuff to the point where you just don't feel sympathetic anymore. And that was the thing, people were like, that's the thing that they do with these villains, is they'll say, like, something good, and, like, you know, like, I don't like war, my family was ravaged by war, and everyone says, yes, that's good, and they say, I will now blow up this building full of innocent people, and I was like, wait, no, what? Like, I'm not saying that you can't have villains that have, like, understandable motivations or are sympathetic. I mean, I think Thanos, they kind of did that well, where, like, you understand his motivation, but he still is, like, a villain. But there's a difference between making villains that are understandable or sympathetic and just being, you know, going, like, this villain has a reasonable belief, now we're just gonna make them do something totally unethical for no reason whatsoever, and then it doesn't really, like, advance their cause in a way, but it's just to remind you that they're evil, and it's like, okay, that's just stupid. Like, we want one world, one people, and I'm gonna blow up this building full of innocent people. It's like, what? And then it gets to the point where you just don't feel sorry for her anymore. And then, like, at the end, he's, like, bringing her dead body down after Carly dies. Sam's, like, he looks like an angel descending and carrying her body, but it's like, she just killed a bunch of innocent people. Like, I don't feel sorry for her anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and also I guess, like, Sharon's evil now.
Oh yeah, that was stupid. Oh, and then another thing about Carly's, like, she, like, threatens Sam's nephews for no reason.
Yeah.
She, like, calls his sister, and she's like, I might pay your family a visit. And then and I guess the show realized that made her look like too much of an asshole. So then when she talks to him, she's like, oh no, Sam, I wasn't really gonna hurt your nephews. I was just joking. Like, I was just saying that. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that wasn't great. I thought that was stupid.
Yeah. What else? So, they also bring in this new character, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Seinfeld lady.
Who I guess is supposed to be, like,
Madam Hydra.
Madam Hydra, who I haven't really read anything with her in the comics, but I guess she's supposed to be, like, an evil Nick Fury. So I don't know if they're gonna try to do, like, a Dark Avengers thing, because she, like, helps out,
Think of evil Avengers.
Because she helps out, bitch boy John Walker.
And he becomes U.S. agent.
Yeah.
He made that scene where he like makes his own, tries to
That
make
was
his own shield. DIY shield.
Yeah, and so I guess she's was supposed to debut in Black Widow, so I guess she's gonna be in that too. I mean, it makes sense because like she doesn't really like get a whole lot of screen time in this show, so like I felt like her introduction in this show was a little weird because like she just kind of like pops up and like she's there and like
who is this lady?
Yeah, like, we don't really know who she is, so like I guess I can kind of listen. So I'm hoping we do get like a better introduction to her.
Yeah,
in
I
Black
feel like
Widow.
they should have waited until Black Widow came out to release this show so we can actually get a real introduction rather than just having this person pop up and you're like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I was gonna say.
Yeah, Sharon just turns evil
Yeah,
for like no and then they try to make you like feel bad for her or be like, and then she's like complaining like, oh, I've been on the run for so long, and then she like is mad at Steve. It's like, hey, first of all, Steve warned you that was gonna happen. Like, he's like, hey Sharon, just so you know, they're gonna come after you. And she's like, yeah, I know. But I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe the government came after me. It's like, you knew that was gonna happen, you idiot. Why are you mad at Steve? He literally warned you that helping them was gonna have consequences, and now you're mad that helping them betray the government had consequences. Like, you don't get to complain. But then literally, like, she just shows up in the US again. It's like, if it was that easy for you to just come back to the US, then why didn't you just do it? Like, in, like, the last episode, you just see her appear. It's like, hey, I'm back in New York now. It's like, and then, like, so then why were you hiding out in that country for so long if you could just come back at any time?
I don't know, I guess, like, she, like, amassed power and, like, now is the power broker person.
For some reason,
like,
she's that
evil...
She's that guy from Animal Crossing who sells you fake art now.
Yeah, it's just, like, this evil, like, powerful criminal underlord person or whatever, and I guess now, like, she's, like, using her position, now that she's back in the US, she's, like, using her position to, like, oh no, get, like, government secrets to, like, shady criminals, but it's, like, why? It's
just, like, please just kill off this character. I don't give a shit about Sharon. I don't, like, and now they're, like, how do we make this her interesting? I know, let's make her a villain. It's like, this is stupid. She's not a villain I mean, I know that, like, in the comics, I think she gets brainwashed into doing evil stuff, but, like, she's not a villain in the comics. I don't know why you're... I mean, some people are saying, like, oh, maybe she's a Skrull, but, like, I don't know, like...
That would be kind of stupid, honestly, if you did that, like...
Just get rid of this character, please. She's pointless. Yeah, and then she's, like, complaining, you know, about how hard her life is while she's, like, sitting in massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
While, like, Sam is struggling. That was another thing that was stupid. The fact that Sam has financial troubles, like, what? I guess Tony Stark wasn't paying them. The Avengers need a union. Superhero union. But yeah, that was stupid. They're like, oh, Sam Wilson's, like, in debt. It's like, he's an Avenger. I know that they're trying to, like, have some sort of a conversation about, you know, how black people, like, don't have as much wealth as white people and how they have financial troubles, but it's like, it makes no sense for why Sam Wilson would have financial troubles, because, like, he was literally, like, a military contractor. It's like, do you have any idea how much money military contractors make? Like, there's no reason why that guy can't afford a boat. And also, like, what, so Vision can afford who's a robot, can buy a house, but Sam can't get money to fix a boat? Just call up Pepper Potts and be like, hey, can you give me some money to fix my boat?
Give me 50 grand. I'm like, sure.
Hey, remember when your husband shot me? Anyways,
you owe me money.
Can you give me some money, please? Yeah, they're like, how, like, I don't know. It makes no sense for why, like, Sam Wilson can't get money.
Yeah, it's dumb. I don't know where I was going with that.
The scene where Bucky breaks Zemo out of jail, it was very obvious that was just, like, an afterthought. Like, they're just like, how do we break Zemo out? I don't know, he just does something. It's like, they don't even show it as it happens. It shows, like, Sam and Bucky are sitting there, and Bucky's like, what if this thing hypothetically happened, and I hypothetically broke him out, and then you find out, oh, he actually did that whole time. The thing is that, like, I was watching this review and people were like, wait, so Bucky's plan to break Zemo out of jail involves him convincing prisoners to try to kill each other? Like, that's kind of unethical, Bucky. What the hell? That's kind of messed up. And then, like, the therapy thing, another thing I didn't like about it was that the whole show, they're talking about him, like, well, he needs to, like, make amends for what he did. It was okay, but, like, that's, making amends is for people who chose to do something bad, and, like, Bucky didn't choose to do any of the stuff, like, he was brainwashed and literally kidnapped. Like, I understand that he would feel guilty, but, like, you would think that a therapist would be like, hey, what happened wasn't your fault. But now they're like, well, you need to make amends. It's like, he doesn't, though, because he's not responsible for what happened to him. Like,
yeah, it felt weird, like, I guess, like, he's, like, working for the government now, and he's, like, has to, like, fix all the stuff that he did. It's like, they have no right to do that. Like, he has no obligation. I mean, I'm sure that, like, obviously, like, yes, he would want to, like, make things right, but, like, he has no, like, obligation to do that because he didn't have a choice. Like, he didn't ask to get kidnapped and experimented on.
Also, even legally speaking, because, like, prisoners of war can't be held responsible for the stuff that they were forced to do, and technically Bucky was a prisoner of war, so, like, yeah, legally speaking, he can't be held responsible for any of this, so, like, I don't know why, like, well, he would need, like, a pardon or something. Like, he's not responsible for that stuff.
And also, like there's we find out that, like, in the first episode that, like, there was, like, this elderly man who, like, lost his son, and we find out that, like, Bucky killed his son when he was the Winter Soldier, and now Bucky's, like, helping him out because he feels bad, but he can't bring himself to tell him that, like, he was the one that killed his son. And then, like, in the last episode, like, Bucky, like, finally has the courage to, like, tell him the truth of what happened, but, like, I felt like that whole scene, like, there wasn't really, like, any, like, emotional payoff. I mean, like, obviously, like, I get that, like, that would be, like, a very, like, complicated and awkward situation, because, like, yeah, like, this guy that has been your friend, you found out just, like, killed your son, but, like, obviously, like,
they don't even really show his reaction.
They just say that, like, he just says, like, the Winter Soldier killed him, and that was me, and I didn't have a choice, and he just leaves. Like, they don't really, like, show, like, his reaction, like, even, like, what their relationship is like after, or if they even have a relationship after that. Like, that whole scene just felt, like, very rushed to me. Like, it was, obviously, like, I get that, like, that would be a very, like, difficult and awkward situation, but, like, you need to show that.
Yeah, like, if you don't have the time to develop it, then don't put it in the show.
Yeah.
I guess, like, for me, one of the big things that they do in this show the whole premise of the show, and, like, the whole thing about, like, well, Sam Wilson is a black man becoming Captain America, and, like, what that means, like, I get that that's the theme of the show, but at the same time, there are parts of where they sort of make it, like, into this, like, huge thing, and I'm like, okay, this is, like, the same universe that has, like, Nick Fury, who's been the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and also, like, Rhodey, who actually makes a cameo in the first episode. He's been, like, the face of representing the U.S. military since, like, the first Iron Man, so the fact that they're, like, oh my god, guys, isn't it shocking that, like, a black man's gonna be Captain America? It's like, not really. I mean, for this universe, anyway, like, there's a part where, like, Isaiah Bradley says, like, you know, like, oh, they'll never let a black man be Captain America, and I was like, I mean, we've literally had, like, a black man as president. Like, I'm not saying that that's, like, the end of all racism or anything, because obviously that's not the case, but, like, at the very least, it should mean that, like, I don't think that having a black man as Captain America is, like, that shocking anymore. I mean, like, we've already had him in the comics, and it's almost to the point where I'm kind of like, haven't we, like, moved past this stage where, like, there's tons of black characters in the MCU that, like, have prestigious positions of power, and it's, like, not even really, like, a thing. Like, Nick Fury has been, like, the leader of the Avengers since, like, the first movie from, like, 2008, so, like, I don't know, like, it's the point where they're, like, making it's like, oh my god, this is, what a huge deal. I'm like, it's not really that shocking. Like, yeah, of course there's tons of, like, literally, they made Rhodey, like, the Iron Patriot, like, which was sort of like an Iron Man's, I mean, I know it's not really the same thing, but, like, yeah, they had him, like, wearing, like, the stars and stripes and everything, and, like, that dumb Iron Man outfit.
Yeah, and then, like, nobody really, like, made a huge deal out of that,
so it's like, I'm not saying that you can't talk about what it means, even, like, Anthony Mackie, he was kind of like, yeah, I mean, obviously there's people that will make, you know, racist comments and stuff like that, but he's like, you know, for the most part, I haven't really gotten, there hasn't been, like, a whole lot of backlash. It's like, yeah, because, like, I don't think a whole lot of people really care. I mean, there's obviously always going to be some racist idiots, but, like, for the most part, I don't think most people really, like, think it's that big of a deal anymore, which is obviously, like, a good thing. But yeah, I think just the way that they handle that, it's like, it's not really that shocking. That's one of the things that I like about the MCU, is you can have, like, people of color in all these different positions, and it's, like, not even really, like, a thing. Like, you know, you've had Nick Fury, and people are like, yeah, it's Nick Fury, like, he's the leader, and no one, like, cares. So, yeah, that was one of the things that I was like, I feel like this is not really that shocking anymore. Oh, what else? I'm trying to think of, like, what else to say about the show.
I mean, I think we pretty much, like, covered, like, everything, at least, like, that I wanted to talk about. I mean, I guess for, like, an overall grade, I'd give it, like, a B-. Like I said, I didn't like it as much as WandaVision. Like, it definitely, like, felt like I didn't, like, the early reports of, like, the trouble when, like, making this show, like, made it sound like it was a complete disaster, so I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be, like, a complete, like, shit show. I mean, it wasn't that.
I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't, but, like, the issues were definitely there. I mean, it at least, it had, like, a decent, like, premise for a story, but it needed rewrites, and
the one thing that I really did like about, when they bring in, like, the Wakandans, and they show a flashback scene of Bucky in Wakanda, where he, like, realizes that the words don't control him. That, I genuinely, I think that was, like, the best scene in the show.
I was so happy. Bucky
was
crying my heart! And then it was, obviously, it was great to see the, Dora Milaje, is that how you pronounce that?
I think so.
It was great to see them kick John Walker's ass. I love that. Yeah, so, yeah, I guess, so, like, that's kind of it for that. I mean, it's still, like, I'm not, like, gonna tell people to, like, not watch or anything. Like, it's still worth the watch.
Plus, you need to watch these shows now to understand what's gonna happen.
Yeah, so. Like, but, like, if you were, like, a really, like, hardcore, like, Bucky fan or, like, a Falcon fan, this, I feel like
if you're a lot of people fan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like this might be, like, disappointing. It certainly was for me, because I really like Bucky, and I really like Sam.
I also just hate how, I know that I think Sebastian just wanted to get a hair, or have the character get a haircut, because he was sick of wearing the wig, but, like, he looks so much less cool with a haircut. Like, I'm sorry, bring back the long hair. I want to see long-haired Bucky again.
Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it. I'm hoping Loki will be better. I mean, I've liked, for the most part, what I've seen from, like, the previews and everything so far. Owen Wilson's character looks pretty cool. I hope he says wow at least once. And then, also, I guess people are starting to, like, ship his character in Loki now, and they call the ship Wowkey. So, like, yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, so, I mean, it looks like, the show's got good people working on it, and,
yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that, like, it's better than, not that these shows were, like, terrible or anything, they could have been better quality, and I'm hoping that, like I said, like, I'm sure that, like, they'll get, like, more comfortable, like, as they
I mean,
start putting
I'm
out
sure
more
that
series.
like COVID may have been a factor.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
that, so hopefully, once this pandemic is over, get your vaccines. So we can finally end this pandemic. Once that's over, hopefully, and things kind of go back to normal, you know, they'll maybe fix some of the problems, because obviously I think that the delays and having to do, like, shooting during COVID, you know, I'm sure that had, like, I know that they were doing shooting of Falcon Winter Soldier reshoots, and, like, under quarantine, and, or, like, you know, having to, like, follow COVID restrictions, and, you know, so yeah, hopefully that'll make things better somewhat.
Yeah, so guess that's it. That's our thoughts. We'll see you when Loki comes out and all the episodes are done, so we can talk about my boy Loki. I love him. So yeah, that's it for this video. Bye.